Welcome Upper School, welcome faculty, staff, and Castilleja alums. If you're an alum, raise your hand so we can welcome you. So we have over 40 alums with us, and throughout this weekend, we'll be hosting over 100 alums for this weekend, which we're kicking off today, which is Alumni Reunion Weekend. So welcome, and we cannot wait for the rest of the weekend. A couple of alums were asking about the t-shirt and wondering, is this part of the uniform now? And maybe you could say so. Once a year, we get a brand new piece of spirit wear from the athletics department, and we wear it on this day, and we will be having a pep rally later this afternoon in the Fitness and Athletics Center, so hope that you will join us for that. It's a pretty wild moment of the week, let's just say that. You never know what's going to happen at the pep rally. So okay. Let's not go there. Let me tell you about the panel today and our theme, because this is a theme that actually I've been thinking a lot about, and it's curiosity, navigating life, learning, and discovery beyond the circle. So first I thought about my own personal experience with curiosity when I was invited to be the acting head of middle school when Ann Cameron, our head of middle school, was going on sabbatical. And I was like, I don't know, maybe. Like, I'm curious, what would it be like to be an administrator at Castilleja School? And I served as acting middle school head. And that moment of curiosity led to some risk-taking, and now here I am, my 13th year as the head of school. So you also heard a story the other day. I thought about Maddie Price, and I think it was her soccer coach maybe who said, you're such a good runner, you should think about track, you should think about running. And she was curious, and so she took a risk and she tried it out. So I'm starting to think that curiosity is almost like a precursor to risk-taking. You might think of it like that. I do. When we look at Castilleja applications for admission, one of the things we're looking for is evidence of curiosity, because it is the curiosity of that really leads to you being a lifelong learner. And that is, of course, what we aim to achieve here. And so now you're going to hear from some alums who have had their own journeys with curiosity and lifelong learning, and how it has led them to be where they are today. I am certain that their stories are going to be inspiring for all of us, students, faculty, staff, and alums. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from them. Without further ado, let's begin our alumni panel.
Happy Friday, everyone. I am Lauren Hesse, the Director of Alum Engagement and Capital Campaign, and I'm fired up to be the moderator of this panel. So let's get started with introductions. Our first panelist is Nancy Osborne. She's class of 67. She splits her time between Washington State and California. At Cassie, she was a boarding student, where she was House Council President. She did student government, was a social chair, played field hockey, and her favorite Cassie tradition, which we no longer have, is the Christmas pageant. So Nancy, it's been 55 years since your graduation, and I would love to hear what you've been up to since you were a dorm student, living in one of our rooms on campus.
Thank you, Lauren. Okay, I know you're all really good at math, but 55 years ago, that means I'm really old. But so's Castilleja, and there isn't a day that has gone by since I graduated that there hasn't been a memory, an experience, something I learned that I've carried forward to my life today. When I graduated from Castille, I went to Mills College where I got a degree in English literature and biology. I ended up being an environmental writer because the environmental movement was just kicking off and environmental impact statements needed to be churned out in an incredibly fast way. So I did that for a while until my first child was born. And when she was born, she was profoundly disabled. So again, my life took another change. I dedicated my time to doing advocacy work for the disabled, for healthcare, education, and employment. I was able to parlay that experience into a firm I founded and worked in for 30 years with advocacy, focusing primarily on disability and healthcare issues. 12 years ago, I was, again, fortunate enough to have an opportunity come my way. I was asked to be the president of Seattle Rotary. Now, it's kind of a big deal in Seattle. There's 740 members of the club, and it was the centennial year, and I was the third woman to be asked to be president. So I felt it was important that we start a project for the next 100 years. So one of our members was Bill Gates Sr. I made an appointment to see him, walked in his office, and he said, "Eradicate malaria." I had no idea how to begin, but I figured since he told me to do it, I better. So off we went and have since grown that project in sub-Saharan Africa substantially. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Our next panelist is Holly Berman. Holly is class of 87. She lives in Boulder, California, and in a van. So she will tell you hopefully about that in a little while. At Castille, she played tennis. She was involved in Amnesty International and theater. Her favorite Castille tradition is Lunch on the Circle, which she'll get to do with all of you today. Holly, you are celebrating your 35th anniversary, yet this is the first time you've made it back for a reunion. So tell us what you've been doing and why you've been so busy.
Yeah. The reunion in this moment in time is often right before the Jewish High Holy Days. Rosh Hashanah begins in 2 days. And so I served as the cantor, the musical spiritual leader of a synagogue for almost 30 years, 25 years officially. And so I went to college in New York City, went to Barnard, and then randomly moved to Boulder, Colorado. I can share that story. And created my life there, and I'll talk a little bit about that, but served this community of over 500 families for 25 years as spiritual counsel, pastoral care, leading services, the musical aspect of services, and officiating at anything from birth to death, and being there for a community as people pass through those life cycle events. And through that moment also survived cancer in 2007, and created a family with my spouse. We have 3 children that we had to do that in an alternative way. And I just, July 1st, so a minute ago, retired from my position, and we bought a van, and we're traveling from sea to shining sea, basically, in van life. Our home base is Boulder, Colorado, but setting off to have adventures, my spouse and myself. Our kids are grown. The youngest, the twins, are in college back east, so just really your age, a little older. And we'll see where life goes next.
Thank you, Holly. Our next panelist is Gina Patton, class of 92. She lives in Los Angeles. She was also a boarding school student here, and she remains very close to her dorm mother to this day. Her favorite tradition is a ring ceremony. She played basketball, soccer, volleyball, and loved the Castille musicals. Rena, let's hear a little bit about your life and journey since leaving the circle.
Well, I also went to Mills College, where I got a degree in media studies and political legal economic analysis. I took a little bit of a break from undergrad, moved to New York, where I stumbled upon a job that I wasn't expecting. I was a publicity assistant at Jive Records, and some of our artists at the time were Britney Spears and Backstreet Boys and Tribe Called Quest. And there's a fun little tidbit that I styled Britney's first album. That was totally by accident. My boss told me, we don't have a budget for this shoot, go find some clothes. And I did, and she wore the clothes, and we ended up using that photo shoot for her album cover. And now I live in Los Angeles, where I manage actors, and I produce, and have to be here today.
Thank you. Next up is Tanya Cage. If you can see, I love her oval photo because of all the pens. Back in the day, that's what everyone would wear that. I don't think you guys do that today. She lives in San Fran, celebrating her 25th reunion. At Castilleja, she played volleyball, basketball, track and field, and was in student government. Her favorite tradition I love is that her dad gave her diploma on her graduation day, which is really special. So let's hear a little bit about who you are today.
Absolutely. First, thank you everyone for having us, and it's so good to be back in this chapel, which I think this is the first time back since I graduated back in this space. But so after Castilleja, I went back east. I got my bachelor's degree from Harvard in neurobiology. Well, at the time it was biology with a specialty in neurobiology because it was that long ago and it wasn't officially a degree at that time. But after college, I wasn't quite ready. I knew I was on this kind of path towards medicine and towards caring for people, but I wasn't quite ready to go straight to medical school. And so after some conversations in the cafeteria, where I spent lots of my time in college, with some advisors, I had put together a self-initiated project which took me to Ghana, where I was able to work with various communities where traditionally women were not, didn't hold the power in the communities. And the way that they did hold that space of power was by being mothers. And so what I wanted to understand was how pregnancy loss affected those women in those communities and what their experiences were. So that project and that experience really changed my life dramatically. And when I came back, I got back on the straight and narrow path, and that took me to medical school at UC San Francisco. And since then, I have been at UCSF for all my medical training. That's where I did my residency in neurosurgery and a fellowship in trauma neurosurgery. And I've stayed pretty close by ever since then. And am now at Stanford as on faculty as an associate professor in neurosurgery.
Last but not least is Lindsey Wang. Lindsey graduated just 10 years ago, and she is one of the furthest traveled here from Massachusetts. So she flew in last night, grateful that you're here. Her favorite tradition is the Thai ceremony. She did volleyball, ASB, and choir when she was here. Lindsey, we'd love to hear, how did you get from graduation to the chair you're sitting in today?
Thank you. It's such an honor to be on this panel with such formidable women and have an opportunity to be back in this space. I'm like on this side of the curtain. So as Laura mentioned, I live in Boston right now. I moved there for undergrad. I got a degree in mechanical engineering from MIT and promptly decided that engineering was not what I wanted to do. So I went to go work for an education nonprofit. We worked with communities in Liberia and Ethiopia. From there, I kind of sparked an interest in policy and better understanding how communities, governments can use data to really drive their programming. So I got my master's in public policy at Harvard, and I was there actually when the pandemic started. And so we went fully remote after spring break. It was kind of a disaster, all these kind of like older professors trying to use Zoom.
Careful.
But we did all these cases kind of like in real time on COVID and like how the World Health Organization was responding, how schools were responding. And I realized like I was here kind of thinking about a problem and really I wanted to be kind of out there they're doing something about it. So I took a leave of absence from grad school, and I worked with Partners in Health for a year, supporting public health organizations around the U.S. Stand up contact tracing programs, and then also plan for equitable vaccine distribution, so making sure that vaccines got to the most vulnerable populations first. So finished that, got pretty burned out, went back to grad school, and I just graduated. And now I work as an independent, and now I started my own business. I'm an independent nonprofit consultant. I work with organizations in the U.S. and also internationally to help them use data in their programming, train their teams, and expand their impact. And I don't just work. I participated in theater a lot when I was in college, and I just completed my first half Ironman on Sunday.
You guys are awesome. Okay, let's talk a little bit about curiosity. I first want to start with Nancy and Tanae. Both of you have spent a lot of your life, working in healthcare, helping other people's lives. How did curiosity lead to your work of making the world a better place? If you want to start.
Sure. So often our education comes from reading books, going to lectures, watching movies. But I've learned that experience has been a powerful motivator and educator in my life. As I mentioned in my introduction, Bill Gates Sr. was my mentor. And when we were discussing the beginning of our malaria project, I was about ready to walk out the door, and he said, "Oh, Nancy, one more thing." And I said, "Sure. You can't just talk about it. You have to go. You have to experience malaria. You have to look into the eyes of the people who are suffering. You have to look into the eyes of the parents who've just lost a child. You have to look into the medical facilities to see how you can make them better in helping these situations." So 2 weeks later, I was on an airplane to Zambia. And it really wasn't on my bucket list, but I've got to say, it changed my life. And I encourage you to look at those opportunities because they truly are life-changing. There was a little boy I met in Zambia called Josiah. He was an orphan. Both of his parents had died from HIV. And he was very poor. He had no shoes. His clothes were dirty and tattered. But he had a smile that could light up a room. And when I think, oh my gosh, I have so many problems, what am I going to do? I think of little Josiah and know that he's struggling along and he's going to make it. But I never would have had those opportunities if I hadn't had the experience to be immersed entirely into a community, into a culture that was very different from mine.
That's fascinating. Do you want to add on to your experience?
Absolutely. And hearing your story, does resonate with me as well. I mentioned I spent some time between undergrad and medical school in Ghana, and also in a situation that was very different from anything that I had experienced firsthand before. And I think, looking back, that might have been like the first thing that planted a seed in my mind of disparities and equity and equality in a very tangible way. And so for me, something, a moment where I became, or like listened really deeply to that question of curiosity was, it came later for me. It was when I was deep into my nursery residency, which at the time that I did it and at the place that I did it, there was one female faculty member, and the last female resident that had trained before me had finished 8 years before me. So when through the beginning part of my junior residency, I spent a lot of time trying to kind of fit the mold, keep my head down, and advance on my based on the work that I was doing, showing that I could kind of keep up with the boy, as it will. It was a very specific kind of an environment where I trained. but it wasn't until my 5th year of residency when we had research, like kind of dedicated research time. And I was doing what I had done before, which is basic science, bench research, molecular brain tumor research. And I was okay at that, but the questions that were, they kept coming up in my mind were the ones of the patients who I'd seen in the years prior. And then going back to the experience in Ghana, more of a translational research, like how can I directly affect the lives of patients that I see, and why is someone with a clinical diagnosis who I see at our county hospital, let's say, having a very different outcome from someone who is on their 3rd opinion in neurosurgical consultation at the main academic hospital. And those are the questions that I kept coming back to, and that's where I kind of, the curiosity came not in the bench research, but in how can I explore these questions of equity, of health disparities. And in taking that step, it kind of allowed me to come to where I am now, which is looking at health, both outcomes, health disparity outcomes, but also healthcare outcomes. So why do people get differences in care, but also why do the underlying differences change their outcomes, if that makes sense. So it was allowing myself to listen to these voices of differences in equality and equity that kind of took me down that path.
Holly, I'm going to turn this to you now. You have a very interesting and exciting background. You've lived this life of service. You just retired. You look pretty young to retire to me. And now you're embarking on this band life, which sounds really cool. So tell us about your path of curiosity.
Yeah, I feel like curiosity, thank you, and I am so honored to be here. I feel like curiosity has been a theme through many moments of my life where you're sort of in that liminal space, like what's next, and wondering, and using all my Castilleja knowledge, trying to plan, and none of those plans really happened. So after finishing college, I was working in casting for television and film. I was talking to you about, and I wasn't happy, and it wasn't good, and I had a friend who said, I'm driving to Boulder, Colorado, and I cried on the phone and said, can I come with you? And I did this sort of soul-searching, like, I'm curious what it's like to move to a place where I don't know any human being. And I got in a car and moved to Boulder, Colorado, and I've been there, that's my home base, since 1991. And then, sometimes you try and plan your path in life, and other times your path in life comes to you. If you're open and you're curious, it shows up for you. And I was working some interim jobs in Boulder and starting to meet people, and eventually did meet my spouse. And I had someone literally approach me and say, can you substitute for this person on the BEMA, where we lead the music for services, can you sub? And I said, no. And they walked away and came back and said, no, yes, you can. And that's literally what happened. And I said, oh, I guess that's what I'm doing now. And I then eventually was hired officially, which is why it's over 25 years. I was hired officially then in 97 and served this community and created a band to make Jewish music. And music has been a thread for me in all of the stories I'm about to share, because music, a quote that's on my website that I think was resonant for you and for me, is that music can transform the mundane. So life is made up of moments, right? And every moment is so beautiful and so special and can be so sacred, and music can bring that to it. Music can elevate a moment and can make us remember a moment. Like we can all remember the songs of moments in our life. And so that's what I really dedicated my career to, was serving people and being present for people and showing up for people in their moments of transition in their life, and allowing music to be a vehicle to provide that sacred framework for those moments. And then I had to craft a family. I was curious, how do two women make a family? well, there's lots of ways, and certainly so my kids are older, so this was a while back. How should I make children? How should I do this? And we ended up creating a family in a I think a beautiful way. Good Morning America thought it was really interesting, so they did a story on us too. So you can look at it. It's like that's a whole other story that I will. You can come talk to me at lunch. But we created a family with a friend. So our kids have 3 parents, but I'm a primary parent, and they've grown up. And then I faced cancer, and I was curious how I would survive a very serious near-death situation and how to navigate parenthood and work and life, and also taking care of myself and being present for myself in that really difficult time of my life. And then my kids graduated, went off to college, and I was coming to this moment of being 30 years at the synagogue, 25 years in my position, and saying, I want to be present for my kids' graduation from college. I want to be present for my parents that are elderly that live here in San Jose, and for my spouse's parents that live back east, and everyone getting older. And I want to be present in a different way in my own life than I had been. And I'm not a big airplane person. And so in COVID, many people bought camper vans. And so we bought a camper van and had to give 18 months notice for my work. So clergy transitions are a big deal. So been planning this for a while, and have now set off on journeys. So we have a home base and a beautiful home, but we go off for weeks at a time on adventures. So we were just back east for 3 weeks and seeing our children and seeing family and friends. And I'm literally doing that thing where I've been friends on Facebook with someone I knew, 30 years ago, and then I meet them in Boston for coffee. I'm doing that. And starting a YouTube channel so that I could make music on the road and note what I'm doing, but also to archive 30 years of music. So I'm kind of in this moment, I'm in this liminal moment of what's next, and I don't know what the answer is, but I'm curious. And I've archived the music and things that I've done and made, and I'm going to figure out what's next and start making that happen. So who knows? I'm the crazy van lady on the panel.
And we need your YouTube channel too. We'll have to get that. So Rena, you are no stranger to Castilleja. I would say you were one of our, the biggest supporters and champion of this school, of our students, our community, and you're always, engaged. In COVID, she's on Zoom at every Zoom meeting, firing up the chat. You've been wonderful, and I'd love to hear a little bit about your curiosity story of kind of giving back and pausing to lean forward.
Well, that's a great question. I'm not wealthy. When I went here, I was on scholarship, and so much was given to me. So I've always been curious, how can I give back despite having limited financial resources? And I do that with my time. I do that by being present. And I encourage you all to figure out ways that you can be present physically, to give back in a way, to give back and to inspire people, to be a good listener, to be a mentor. I find that to be very valuable in my life, and sometimes when I'm giving, I'm also receiving, because I'm learning new things about other people. And also, I try to give because I work in an industry that's, it's entertainment. I work with some interesting people. And I like to take myself out of that to stay grounded and to understand that there's more important things than, what's on Instagram or what the latest celebrity gossip is. So I have found a lot of value in giving to other people of my time and
And thank you. We're great beneficiaries of it. So. Lindsey, you were are the youngest on the panel, so probably, connect the most with our audience here. It's been 10 years since you graduated. You've had a career pivot in between. I'd love to hear a little bit about how exploration and curiosity has, redefined your definition of success.
So, start with a quick background. When I was at Castilleja, I was convinced I was going to go into the medical field. I really wanted to be a doctor. Ever since I was 4 years old, and I helped a friend with a skin knee, I was like, oh, this is how you help people. It's awesome. So I applied to college as a pre-med, and freshman fall bombed chemistry. Like, it was, oh god. It was hard. I felt like I was, barely keeping my head above water the entire time. And I was convinced, what, I'm bad at chemistry, I can't be a doctor. So this dream I've had since I was 4, out the window. And so now I'm in college, and I'm like, I don't know what to do now, but I was pretty good at physics, so mechanical engineering, I can do that. And I kind of did that for a few years, and I wasn't super passionate about it, I guess. I didn't have the same enthusiasm that some of my peers did, and I kind of just, did the problems that were put in front of me, got through it. And then I had this opportunity my senior year to do my undergraduate thesis work with a women's initiative in Uganda, and they had this question whether we could increase the robustness of their machinery for their business. So I had the opportunity to actually go to Uganda. We did the prototyping and planning and stuff in Cambridge, and we got to actually travel there. And we improved the machine, and it was great. But actually, when I was there, the questions that started bubbling up in my head that were actually the ones that were catching my attention were, how did this group of women actually come together to form this small business? Like, what supports did they need to grow their business? Where were they getting funding? Was it a local government? Was it like the World Bank? How did they, scale their impact? And I came back to school, and those questions kind of kept bubbling up in my mind, and I felt like I had spent 4 years in college, and I didn't have the training to actually do anything about it. So when I graduated, I applied to 0 engineering jobs, and I went to go work for the Luminous Fund, which is an international education nonprofit, because I wanted to try and answer some of those questions that I had. And even though I didn't know what that career path would look like, it was pretty scary at the time to kind of step into that uncertainty. I think we have these moments where we can choose to either not try because we're afraid of failing at something, or we can kind of lean into that curiosity and do the work to kind of learn more. And those are the opportunities where I think I have found the most fulfillment and the most joy, I think, professionally.
So we have 239 upper schoolers in this room right now, and you have sat in these pews. What do you wish, what words of wisdom do you wish someone had shared with you when you were a student here? So let's start with Rena.
I wish I was encouraged to travel more, to do programs in the summer where I went abroad. I lived in the dorm, so in the summers, that's when my mother had me at home, right? And but I wish I would have been encouraged to do a summer in France or a summer in Mexico, learning language, meeting people of different cultures. And I really feel that after my first year of college, that curiosity was still in me. And that's why I took a break. I kind of needed to find myself. And I ended up in New York City, which led to working in the music industry. That was not the plan. The plan was to go to law school, be a big-time lawyer, and make a lot of money. That was the plan, okay? And so, traveling to different states, new cities, eventually traveling to different countries. I did all of this post high school, but I wish that I had started in high school, absolutely. So I encourage you guys to do summer programs, especially if they're in a different state or a different country. I really encourage you to do that. And also when you get to college, sometimes there's cross-registration programs with other universities, or you can go do a semester like in London, or I really encourage you to do that.
Thank you. Nancy.
I actually have two stories that I'd like to share. The one that was really meaningful for me was my junior year at Castilleja in biology. And so Mrs. Cuter was our teacher, and she opened the class by saying, we're going to talk about amino acids. And I'm sure she saw all of our eyes roll and think, oh no, how long is this class? But she stopped, and she said in the middle of our angst, you know, amino acids are really important. I have a daughter who was born with PKU, which is, I look it up after, so we'll save the time. But it meant that her baby couldn't metabolize amino acids and formula and breast milk and the usual means of feeding. And suddenly amino acids became really important to us and learning about that. But she didn't stop there. She went on to talk about what it is like to be a woman advocate for your child or for a family member. And she stressed curiosity. And you have to become that expert, which means asking a lot of questions. Some of them are not comfortable, but you must never stop, because perhaps your child's life depends on those very questions that you're asking. But the other thing that I'd like to share is very personal. And it's hard, I'm sure, for many of you sitting here today to understand how precious the relationships you have with your classmates are. I mean, I go back a lot of years, and as Lauren was saying, my favorite part of Castilleja was the Christmas pageant. My roommate of 55 years ago, Jan, was the juggler. She died, and I sang Ave Maria to her, and she croaked. So our friendship, we have very different lives. We live in different parts of the country. But our friendship, and the friendship we both have with many other people, is so strong. We have flown across the country for each other. I had a cancer diagnosis. Jan was with me the whole time. And we've shared the high points and the low points. So stay in touch. You have no idea how the shared experiences that you have today are going to matter as you go forward in your life.
Beautiful.
Quickly, I wasn't nice, but I do have to echo that, the friendships, and the people who you're sitting with now, and people who you study with, or call. One of those people for me is here also, Andy, and she's helped me through all of medical school and all of long distance relationship and all of the things. And there's no one who is going to know you the same way when you're an adult if they don't know you when you are growing up. And that is just something that this school does in an extremely special and invaluable way. So I will echo that. But for me, when I was here, I was a rule follower, like to the letter, right, to the letter. And so, I had a plan, and I was going to this college and then medical school and residency, and I did all those things. But what I would say to my junior or senior self is to not always follow the path, to think about and listen to those times and those moments when your own self-interest, your things that don't speak directly to your academics, when those pique your interest. For me, when I was in college, the sculpture class I took, where I was welding metal and built like a 300 literally pound suitcase out of wood and plaster and got inside it to like mold my body into it, those were the moments that really allowed me to feel like I was, exploring the limits of what I could do. And those are the moments where you kind of get to breathe life back into who you are. And those diversions are not only important, but I truly believe that they are absolutely necessary to allow you to be the person who you are most true to yourself as. So don't follow the straight path all the time. That's
I appreciate that so much. I think I'm 27. I'm just figuring out how to have work-life balance and like have hobbies that aren't meant to be productive in any way. So to have had that guidance when I was younger would have been so helpful. I would also add to that, kind of in the theme of curiosity, don't be afraid to ask questions. I think we are often in spaces where we feel the need to always have an answer and to be afraid to admit that we don't know something or don't understand something. But you miss out on a lot of opportunities to learn, and no one is expecting you to know something off the top of that. I work as a consultant right now, and people are literally hiring me to help them with problems. And it's a struggle every day, but I have to remind myself that like they don't expect me to have the answer right now. Like we're working on it together, and that's fine, and that's what they expect. And so don't be afraid to ask.
I'm remembering I sat in all the chairs and all the years here, and I know I would be thinking, easy for you to say, panelists. So with that said, I think that there are two things, and I also have people, Emily, Mrs. Petrick, I'm still going to call you Mrs. Petrick, even though I know, that inspired music for me. And so the first thing I want to say is that the moment I decided not to pursue the industry and music and all those things was the moment that then it happened for me. And so to be curious to kind of to make those pivots, and also music and things and some of the work that I've done is so often seen as not that path, not like, make a lot of money, do this, do that. And that people say you can't make a living doing the arts. And there are so many ways to craft your life where you're either making a living from the arts or you're participating in creating the arts in your soul every day with whatever you're doing every day. So I want to say that you can find a way to integrate all the things that matter to you, but it may not be apparent. It might show up for you. And then the second thing I want to say, and what I'm curious about in this moment of my life, and I'm going to share also, but what I would say to you is that society judges us so much often on what we do. That's like the question at parties, like, what do you do, right? What we produce, what we're making and doing, and what's our title. And I'm in a moment in my life where I stopped doing that July 1st, and I don't know what's next. And I'm working on creating value and meaning, and knowing that I have value and I matter by existing, not by producing. And so I want to tell you that you do too.
Okay, we have a couple minutes left, so we're going to open it up to Q&A from the audience. Who would like to ask a question? Alums, you are welcome to ask questions too. We would love that.
Yeah. I like that.
Hello, I'm a sophomore, and my name's Zara. And first of all, some of my friends had a question. What's your YouTube channel?
Most importantly.
So go to the website because it connects to the YouTube channel. So the website's just my name, hollyberman.com, which I had to struggle with, like, am I cool enough to do that? But okay, I did it. So just Holly with an I, HOLLIBERMAN.com, and then that has music and my story, and then it connects to the YouTube channel.
Okay, thank you. And my actual question was, I think all of us kind of struggle with, obviously we're going to probably reach the point in our lives when we know what we want to do. And there's the years of high school and maybe even university where we don't know what we want in our lives. And I kind of wanted to ask, like, how do you deal with that stress? Like, what activities can you possibly do? Or like, what mindset can you have about it to maybe make the process a little bit easier?
Somebody want to take that?
Sometimes you need to take a break. You need to pause. You need to let the universe kind of tell you which direction you could go. I think that because we go to college prep schools, supposed to go to college, after college, supposed to go to grad school, medical school, law, like go. Sometimes you need to stop and just experience life. And things may happen to take you in different directions. Things may happen to bring you back to where you started. Because I took a break, I went to New York, I stopped, went back to school, finished, moved to LA, was feeling kind of lost, even though I have this exciting career, went to grad school, and you just have to kind of let your life take you in different directions, and it doesn't have to always be boom, boom, boom. There's a lot of pivots, and that's okay, because you always are going to end up where you are supposed to be. Always. Always.
I love this career, as Rena said. Careers are not linear. I think I definitely had a mentality of I'm going to go to school to study this thing, and that's going to be the rest of my life. And then when I graduated, I started thinking about the people whose careers I really admired, people like Nancy, like Holly, like everyone, kind of every 10, 20 years, they just had a pivot. They, a new opportunity came up, they changed, it may not have been their plan when they were in high school, and it's okay not to know. But if you start thinking about a career not as a linear path, but more as kind of like, a winding stroll or something like that, it helped me alleviate some of that pressure. I was really worried about I was going to do something until I mess up my future. So let yourself kind of do this.
And I want to add one thing, which is in the moment, because I still have those moments. And in the moment, one, just know it's okay to ask for help. In whatever form that comes, family, friends, whoever, and wherever. One, ask for help, and two, know that it's always okay to say no. Careers, like everything happens and comes at you, and if you feel like you need to know where you're supposed to be and know what you want to do next, opportunities may come that could move you towards that path, but that may move you further from feeling settled or comfortable. And it's okay to say no to the thing that you think, but that's on my way. But if that opportunity is the right one, to echo what you said, it will come back to you. And sometimes those moments, like for me, the moments of quiet with my 5-year-old child are the things that allow the noise to quiet a bit, and then the substance to kind of rise a bit. So it's okay to say no.
Thank you. Thank you, panelists. You guys were insightful and amazing. We loved your stories of curiosity.
We want to hang out.
I know middle school
Yeah, we do.
wants to come in here. The good thing is that it is now lunch and learning time. So these panelists and many alums will be at lunch. So you guys can sit with them, please, and have lunch with them and ask them questions. Please exit out of this door. Thank you guys very much.
Sheena, you're right. I want to connect with every one of you on a different
You guys were amazing. We would have loved to have done that longer.
It always happens.
It's lunchtime now, and so